Awesome. So we're gonna do a welcome. Like I said, like let's see who's around here. So in the chat, if you could put your name, organization, and what brought you joy this week. And then we can just share a few. So Jennifer, she's from Arcadia and being here with all of us. Yoli, Lucy, Beth. And you can put it only one because I see people doing it separately. Erica, Southern Minnesota, Regional Legal Services, my 8 years old birthday. Yes, my mom's birthday is this week too, so that also brings me joy. Claire, the foundation. Oh,
one-on-one with
one-on-ones. And then, oh, it's going fast. Something Kenya. I read something with Kenya.
Julia from St. Paul Youth Services says the weather.
I agree.
And then Kara from Cal says a new baby in the household and spending time with her. Oh, how nice. Julie from Welcoming Communities. Connecting, oh yeah, with a new friend from Kenya. You got that one, funny.
Okay, let's see who else. Centro, I think that's Yoli, my baby Lucas. Oh, wonderful. And
Iman from Rye is excited for the blessings that August will bring.
Yes, it's crazy how time flies. Monday is August 1st.
Shannon from Hope says her best friend's in town, spending time with her.
It's all exciting.
All kinds of great stuff.
Love to be outside. Yes, definitely. We got to take advantage of the weather because I know fall comes and then winter hits. Okay.
Okay, great. Okay. So yeah, let's have some good reactions for joy. Reactions for joy.
Yay.
All the joy in the room. Yay. Oh, busy week, not so joyful. Well,
we get to be busy. Yeah,
it's good to have things to be engaged with.
Good. Yeah. For those who are coming in, we were just sharing our names and organization and what brought you joy this week. If you can put it in the chat. We are recording this session. So again, if you don't feel comfortable sharing your face, you can turn off your camera. But I think everyone is good. Awesome. And then if you can mute yourself, I don't know, I'm hearing some other, just to.
I'm gonna mute
it. There's no echo.
Unmute yourself, Bonnie.
Yeah. I was like, yeah, so it's good to hear all the joy that's happening or will be happening this week. So good, awesome. So now we have some updates from Claire. Claire, it's all you.
Some foundation updates.
Yes, so some foundation updates. So the biggest update is that now I'm starting to be able to meet with people in person. So that's lovely. So, and the second thing is that we have hired a new program officer. I think some of you may have known our friend Bilal Al-Katout. He moved to Headwater Foundation for Justice. So we have a new program officer, Mayra Givens, rather. And so some of you have met her. So she's been coming along with me on a couple of our Reconnect visits so she can just get a rhythm for how we're doing things. So Fatima and Lucy had a chance to meet with her. And so we'll see if others of you get to meet with her. I would say the biggest news that's going on right now at the foundation is the current strategic plan that we're in, which takes us through the end of 2022, is actually the strategic plan where this Healthy Connections portfolio that all of you are in was born out of. So as you know, we had Healthy Connections 2019, and that was for 2 years. And now we're in the middle of Healthy Connections 2021, which goes through mid 2023. So we are in a quarterly strategic planning cycle with our board of directors. So their most recent strategic planning session was in July. Our colleagues from Arcadia did a retrospective on what we have learned so far from all of you doing the work in the community, what the impact has been of your work, what the lessons learned have been of your work. And the board was very enthusiastic and very pleased to hear all of the wisdom that is growing from within your communities and continuing to benefit your communities. The board will again meet in September. In September, what we are doing is we are doing an initial look at different areas of focus within looking upstream. So it includes much of the work across our 3 current areas of funding, which again is Healthy Start. So that is affordable, accessible, and quality childcare for children birth through age 5. It's Healthy Connections, which all of you know much about, right? How connections within and across communities have short-term and long-term health benefits for our communities. And then the third area is around access to healthcare. And so what we've been doing for the last month, and we will be sharing with our board at their September meeting, is what does the data say about different populations across these different strategies? So within Healthy Connections, for instance, really did a cut looking at everything from the rise in hate and what's the impact that has had. Continuing for immigrants and refugees to be under attack. Looking at the rise in violence against people of color, et cetera. And so many of the things you're working on, but also new areas of discovery, like that people for the last few years have been looking at reparations to Black people for the slavery that their families have endured. And so we have had, our team met yesterday to kind of go over all the data, and we're doing a sort of that to present to our board in September. That will help us to know how much will that new data inform how we go forward as a foundation. The new strategic plan will be approved by the board at its December 15th meeting. And then the new strategic plan will lead and inform and shape our work for 2023, 24, 25, and 26. I think all of you are signed up to get the foundation's e-newsletter, which is the first place we will always update. So I don't have to call all of you. I can respond to questions you have instead. But that is the big news that we have at the foundation.
Thank you, Claire.
Yep.
Does anyone have any questions? Okay, you may have heard some of these updates. Yeah, so if any point, not now, maybe later, feel free to reach out to Claire if you need any clarification as well.
Excellent. Great. So thanks, Claire, for giving that update. And part of that update involved the work of our team at Arcadia, where we sort of Fani, Tahoot, and I divided ourselves and had touch points with each of you. We still have one more touch point left to do, but our goal was really to hear about your the year 1 in the grant cycle, which is different than a calendar cycle, as you all know. So starting last summer to this summer, even though we did some of our touch points in April, we realized that you still had a whole maybe quarter left of work to do. But in any case, we wanted to hear successes, challenges, lessons learned, adaptations, with an eye to what are some things that that perhaps could be shared with others. I know Claire does a great job of championing your work to the board and to other stakeholders. And so we wanted to, as evaluators, also hear about that and see if there's ways that we can support you in your endeavors. And then similar to what your other evaluators might have done, We also wanted to provide some summaries back to you in case you find any of this useful. It coincided with some reporting at the foundation too. And so we were trying to make this all seamless. I'm not sure if we succeeded this time around, but maybe in the future, we'll get it down. And we also had an idea about a metric that could be asked across all of the grantees in this particular Healthy Connections portfolio. We are the evaluators for all the portfolios, and so there's a metric that they all track beyond counts, things related to the work that they do. And so we wanted to explore transformational leadership. You'll hear more about that in a moment. But we wanted to, even though you got your one-page summaries back, we also wanted to give you a glimpse as to how we heard themes across all of you come through in this first year. And so this visual is maybe floating egg in spirit for no real reason. But anyway, we have these themes that we wanted to let you in on. At least this is what we were hearing, and then give you an opportunity to, see in what ways this might seem familiar, or recognize that you all might share some things in common, or some of you might share some things in common. So in the visual, there are kind of three points that emerged. And so do you want to start with what you want to report, Fani?
Yes. So one of the things that I saw was the emergent action, or I heard and read also from all of you that I met. There was a lot of themes of like, we're doing some civic and policy advocacy. Although we've been doing that, some of that pieces have changed or have evolved, or we're trying to do in a different way. We're trying to be more, trying to do more advocacy, being more in the community, and trying to do more of that work. And there was also a theme about community engagement. With COVID, you had to adapt to that, but continue doing that in some way or another. Regardless of COVID, you found creative ways to continue engaging with community via Zoom, phone calls, doing community events, when appropriate, and all that stuff, so you all continue doing that community engagement in some way or another, regardless of the pandemic, even though we're still in a pandemic. So you guys continue doing that engagement in that aspect. There was also, some of you shared about the cross-section, partnering with other organizations or meeting other organizations and having that cross collaboration, either if it was with the state, the city, or just another nonprofit organization or other grassroots or community-based organizations or groups that you're like started kind of emerged that arose throughout this past year. So new partnerships or expanding some of those partnerships, and some of those partnerships even with the community itself, the community members, the people in itself. So because those are really important members as well. And like I said, there was new creative ways, innovative ways of doing some of this action work in terms of the process, in terms of how you're carrying out the work, how you're defining the work, and in terms of evaluation as well. How are you collecting this information? How are you collecting these narratives, these stories, and then how you report back those as well? Because I heard from a lot of you, they're like, it can't always be numbers, because those numbers, doesn't capture all the heavy work that you do behind the scenes that sometimes either funders or other people may not understand that it's a whole process to that. And then always looking back, reflecting, what have we learned during the pandemic or even before pandemic? And then looking ahead, what else can we learn from this pandemic, or how are different ways that we can continue to take action and continue doing the same work that you are all already doing?
Yeah, so staying with the idea of adaptation in a time of dynamic change, whether it's the pandemic, some of it is aftermath of various, civil rights and lots of things happening in our environment that's asking us to be different. There's Afghani refugees showing up. There's all kinds of things that is asking us to either show up differently or adapt to a new normal or a new something, which luckily you have always been adaptive, but this past year has really provided more opportunity to flex that adaptation muscle. So everybody works with people in the cohort. So thinking about what do staff need to be safe and to not have burnout, thinking about how do we support staff and other leaders within the community so that as we're all adapting and changing, that we can also have well-being and stay safe. There's this learning new ways of flexing muscles. There's internal journeys of transformation that are happening, people wanting something different for their lives than they wanted before. And so there is this notion of who are the people in our lives and what do they need, and how do we need to show up the same, be stable as well as differently. And then also you are all in organizational type contexts that have infrastructures. So when we're not together, because we might be remote somewhere, what does that mean about our physical space and our technology? In the time of COVID, there was lots of one-time funds available for certain things, but then those funds are going to go away or have gone away. And so, but we want to still maintain certain things. Foundations like Blue Cross has also said general operating funds is okay, and that may or may not continue. So figuring out, well, what is the funding landscape? How do we make sure the spaces, because we care about being together in community, how do we make all these different shifts and still stay healthy, happy, busy? How do we maintain that balance? And so again, you're all adept at it, but it seems to this past year has really added some new things to flex those adaptation muscles with.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So what's missing from this displayed? What would you add? We've heard a lot from all of you, but
and you can put it in the chat, or feel free to
yes.
take yourself off mute and say something if you'd like.
Or are any of these areas unclear to you? I guess we did a nice summary. Okay.
So Jill says, I'm thinking about collaboration. Would that be under cross-sector partnership?
Yes, absolutely. And collaboration, I can also see in all the three areas. You know, these are not silos. We just put them in that area just so we can identify themes. You can definitely see that collaboration in people. And then infrastructure, you know, how are you collaborating with funders, with the space you have? And then also, yeah, partnerships and all of that.
Mm-hmm.
Someone raised their hand.
Yeah, this is Raj from Seva. I also have a similar question about in the infrastructure, now that you have covered the people and emergent actions, but in the infrastructure, I see some of the areas are missing. Definitely collaborating with the funders, and definitely some more circles need to be put in here in infrastructure.
Okay. Which circles are you thinking?
Like in the infrastructure capacity building.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Without that, infrastructure is not going to improve. And of course, it's connected to funding.
Mm-hmm. Thanks for that. Mm-hmm.
Yes.
We also have Michelle talking about infrastructure, may also include personnel, staff, contractors, consultants, volunteers. Sure. Mm-hmm. great.
Yes, and then Yvette also says, yes, capacity building and professional development could be added there.
Mhm.
Absolutely. And then Julie says, each new partnerships create a new networking circle and skill set. Definitely. And that's what we heard and saw from your work too this year, and continue doing that. I feel like, even though with the challenges, it was always the opportunity to build that.
Mhm.
Mhm. Mhm. Okay. Are any of these topics that you would like to go on a deeper dive to explore with others after we add the ones you all suggested?
Sorry, this is Raj again from Seva. So I was also thinking a big role on mentorship here from organizations that have already gone through all this. That would be helpful.
So a mentorship kind of a structure. Mhm. Thank you for that.
Mhm.
Oh, you have,
There's one
Vina?
Thank you. And thank you for the question. This is kind of related to the ample and flexible funding, but and the mentorship point, which is thinking about especially like inflation. I know it sounds kind of like it's a dull dull but really important topic. And I know that one of the things I feel like we're struggling with is that never having been through a time of this much inflation and also such high employment, which is wonderful. What does that really mean for being planful in our organizations and in the infrastructure?
Thank you for that. It looks like Joe was asking, well, what do we mean by going deeper? I think we were approaching it from, I know a goal or an activity that Claire often does is trying to connect you all. If she sees, oh, one person's working on something and someone else has worked on something or is also curious about something, putting you all together. So if you had the opportunity to work with others to either explore solutions or share some things, what kind of topics are coming through for you where you'd like to go deep, figure some things out with others?
with each other.
So it looks like some more things have come through the chat.
Yeah, Yvette says she wants to further explore preventing burnout.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And then Beth, under infrastructure or people, trend towards unionized and unionizing staff. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know Claire had mentioned the unionizing coming through in some of her contacts, one-on-ones and different things. I don't think in our evaluation team it came up in our time, but yes, it seems like there are people who are walking in or starting unionization. So that's a newish, old but new something to look at.
It's emerging, yes.
Emerging, yeah, sure.
Well, and this is Claire. I will also add that in our group that we have today, we have at least 4 new executive directors. So like leaders of organizations. That's like 20% of the leaders that are present, where some of them have taken over from a founding leader, which is a whole nother thing. Many of them are taking over from very people that have been leading over a really long tenure. So that's also something that is very present right now in this particular group of folks that are gathered today.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Yvette saying I didn't know there was in it, and Beth saying newish in this sector. So yeah, it's emerging. Is there anything else before we move on that comes through as I'd like to hear from or work with others on emergent topics in your organizations? Evaluation. Great. Thanks for that. So we'll hold on to these potential topics and work with Claire on what we could cultivate some opportunities for you to elect into some learning circles or labs or something. So stay tuned. I say stay tuned. And yeah, late breaking comment about new EDs and mentoring. That's awesome. The other topic that we talked with folks about at our annual check-ins was this transformational leadership idea. And my slides aren't moving, unless they're moving for you, but not for me. Okay, there we go.
Okay.
So transformational leadership was, again, the idea was the other portfolios have a metric that they measure across the grantee partners that goes beyond counting engagements and counting number of people involved in engagements. And so we were thinking, we started exploring some civic and community engagement. Then we moved into this realm of transformational leadership. So then that's what we asked you about when we met, is like, is this a thing? And so what we walked away with is people's thoughts about leadership is on a continuum, partially because of the diversity of the portfolio. We have, some who provide, like legal services, and their thoughts about leadership are, mentoring lawyers and things like that. Whereas others are doing, we have our own leadership model, and here's what that looks like. And we work with community members to uplift and uplift voice. And so there was lots of different takes on transformational leadership and who are leaders and who's transforming and all that kind of a thing. And so we loved hearing all these different vantage points, but didn't walk away thinking there was a shared way that people did it, which is okay. You don't have to all do anything the same way. And so we also then recommended to Claire that that's probably not the thing that cuts across all of our grantee partners. That would be something to try to develop a metric around. So not that we're leaving it behind, but we were like, well, that was a very interesting journey that we heard about, and a continuum that exists. But we have another concept we'd like to explore with you, mostly because the foundation has decided it wants to do its own deeper dive, if you will, around this topic. And we would love to get your feedback on a framework that exists to explore it. And so the concept is organizational equity practices. We know that you all have some sort of organization that in infrastructure that upholds the work that you do. And there are some frameworks out there that explore how do you live your equity values by how you do your organizational work, your organizational, how you put your infrastructure together, how you walk through community, walk through life, how you go about being equitable in your practices. And so there's an organization that we've worked with that's a national organization called Praxis. They come out of health equity, public health, do a lot of work around the country with various kinds of health partners, as well as community and civic engagement partners. And they have this framework that they use in their work that we'd love to hear how your reactions to it. And so they've set out these principles for health, justice, and racial equity. And if you infuse these principles in your work, then you're more likely to be living your equity principles. And sometimes it's not as obvious or easy to do that. And so we're going to walk through each one of these principles, and then we're going to have a little exercise where you get to go deeper with them, and you tell us, like, what do they look like in action? Or I don't like this principle, it doesn't make sense to me. I can't tell you how to find it. But we'd love for you to at least try to see, okay, are these principles even something that resonate with you? And how would you know it if you saw it in your organization? So let's see here. So our first principle, Fani's going to tell us more about.
Yes. So the other thing also with this principle is like how you show up. You as maybe the leadership level that you hold, and with your staff, with your community, and the work. And so the first principle is act with care. You know, how are you showing that? And your organization may or could may practice this by proceeding thoughtfully, you know, considering all ideas, considering all voices, be deliberate, seek to understand the people, the community, your work, your staff, whoever may that be that needs to be understood, building trusting relationships. And yes, and that may be with, again, community, yourself, your staff, your team, you know, whoever that may be, in order to practice this act with care principle. And then lead with love. And however that may be, you know, whatever leadership level or whatever work you're doing, whatever project. So that's some ways that you can practice act with care. And then we have inclusivity. And I'm sure that when you were going through these principles, you're like, yeah, we do that, which is great. Yeah. So you can be able to tell us more examples or share with each other, you know, what that may look like and feel like. So with inclusivity as an organization, you can define the problem. And that again, may be with the people, the environment, the community, however you may see the problem it is. Design appropriate solutions or ask for recommendations, suggestions, and then define success, which is a huge word. Success can look different and feel different. So those are some of ways you can be inclusive or practice inclusivity in your work and as an organization. And then the third one is authentic community collaboration, which we saw in our themes. You know, some of you ask about collaboration and partnership. And I know some of you all do this too. So you build in dignity and that work in your organization and how you practice your projects and all of that. And then you also honor perspective. And that could look like incorporating voices from the community, let the community lead the projects or design projects or design your work or partner with you all. And also integrate and recognize who's there, the work, and all of that. And like I was saying, co-design, co-implement, co-measure, co-evaluate, and how they may look like. So those are different ways that you can practice collaboration. And then sustainable solutions, you know, thinking in the long term, you know, how can we practice this principle as an organization? That could be community driven, you know, again, by incorporating the previous 3 principles, you can do some of this, build community capacity. That could be mentorship, that could be leadership, that could be professional development. You know, however those skills and capacity is built and extended, you guys can practice the sustainable solutions. And then resident knowledge, or more of community knowledge, I would say, or people knowledge. And then again, continue to deepen those relationships, continue to sustain those relationships. They're not always easy, but those are some of the ways you can practice sustainable solutions. And then increase programmatic capacity. Okay, that's okay. And then yeah, build lasting infrastructure. And again, with some of you, when we saw the themes earlier, there's something else missing there. And yes, definitely. You all, I feel like, have been working on how to make that stronger for yourselves and for your staff too, so they can, because your staff carry out the work and you need to have a strong infrastructure and make sure it's there so they can continue the work. And then respect for your work, yourselves, your people, your community. So some ways that you can practice sustainable solutions. And then we have, I believe it's the last one, right?
Yes. Mhm.
Yes. So lastly, the fifth principle is commitment to transformation. And transformation can look different, and I'm sure you practice it differently as well. You have examples of that. And in your organization, you can learn from one another. This is one way, sharing, meeting together, doing convenings, sharing perspectives, stories, and reflecting on your own structures and practices. What else do you do? What else can you add in your ways of doing health equity, or what's missing, or who can you invite? All of that, and then finding areas to continuously improve as an organization, culture and practices. We all, do our best. But there's always area for improvement or suggestions along the way.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
those are the 5 principles. And now,
And so we have a small group exercise because as evaluators, we're also like, how would you know it if you saw it? It's one thing to have a checklist about, yep, we do that. Yep, we do that. But we'd love to hear stories about how. How do you do that? And in the small group exercise, we love to hear from you about examples of these principles in action. And so what we have for you today is we have a Google slide document that in your, sorry, that I put the link to in the chat. And so what we're going to do is open up small group rooms, let you decide which one of these principles you'd like to do a deeper dive today with your colleagues to talk through like how it's defined by these folks, these praxis folks, maybe how you might redefine it. And then what does it look like in action? What are some examples of this principle in action? And then what advice you would give to others who might be trying to practice this principle in a more robust way. So in the small group, you'll come to this Google Doc, and let's say Act with Care is the one that you're interested in. Slides 2, 3, and 4 are about Act with Care. So when you come into the room, there's some warm-up questions. You'll go through that together, and then slides 3 and 4 are about answering some questions that we would like to hear from you when we come back and do the report back. And so questions 3 and 4, you can kind of type right in here the answer to how do you embody this principle, or what are some examples. And then 4 is advice for others. You can type right in here that sort of thing. And so if you want to talk about the inclusivity, that's slides 5, 6, and 7. They're kind of color coded, so you should be able to find them easily enough. So you're all coming into the same document, and you're typing in some things about your small group's thoughts about this principle in action. You're going to have to assign, it would be nice if you would assign a facilitator, someone who will take you through all 4 questions, watch the time, that sort of thing. And if you could elect someone to be the note taker. The note taker would be the one typing into this box. So maybe someone who's comfortable with the tech is great. And then when we come back together, we're going to look through all of your answers and talk through them. And your group's note taker will then also be asked to come off mute and say a few words about what your conversation was like to answer these questions.
Mm-hmm.
Where might you have some questions? Everything seemed clear?
Yeah. So Jennifer put the Google Doc on the chat. So if your first thing to do is just click on that link and it will take you directly to what Jennifer was showing.
Yes. And we're
Because
all
once
working in the
we-
same document. We're all working in the
Mhm.
same document. So, so you'll be given the opportunity to pick which principle you want to do a deeper dive today with others on. So. Okay, so you have 45 minutes to be in the room together with your colleagues. If you get done early and you want to take a break, by all means, do that. So 45 minutes from now is 2:30. So we'll come back at 2:30, and that will be the time we'll go through this together. Okay. So I'm opening up the breakout rooms now, and you get to decide where you want to go.
Yeah, which principle?
Which principle would you like to do a deeper dive?
You can select join. If you want that principle, select join, and it
Yeah,
will take you to that breakout room. Let us know if you're having any difficulties selecting a room. Okay. The transformation principle, it's popular.
No one's in inclusivity,
Yeah,
and we only have one in sustainable solutions.
okay.
Oh no.
Okay.
If you're trying to decide, Vina's in sustainable solutions. She could use a colleague or two.
Mhm. Noah's in inclusivity.
That's okay.
Lucy wants to be in inclusivity.
Excuse me, I have a question. How do you actually join?
Do you see anything that popped up on your screen?
Yeah, I did. So you, in the chat, you gave the link, I clicked that. So that's open. I see the diagram and things of that nature. But in terms of the breakout groups, I don't know how to enter into it.
At the bottom of your screen, there should be an icon that says breakout rooms. Or if you click where it says more with the 3 dots, you should get an option for breakout rooms, and then a new kind of window will pop up. And then you will see the different breakout rooms we created.
I can assign you to a room if you'd like to tell me which one you want to go to.
Or the one where everyone wants to be.
The one where everyone wants to be.
Well, from what I hear, I don't know.
Oh, well, it was just Vina could use someone to talk with, talk about sustainable solutions, if you're okay with that.
If I'm 100% honest with you, I'm not interested in that one.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
I'm interested in the ones that had my interest were commitment to transformation and authentic community collaboration, but I'm more.
Those are the 2 popular ones. So
Correct.
do you have a preference?
I'll do the commitment to transformation.
Okay, well, I'll send you there.
I appreciate it.
No worries, thank you. Oh, and Lucy, you wanted to go somewhere?
Yes, I'm sorry. I'm struggling to find the room too. Can you send me to the inclusivity one, please?
Inclusivity?
Yeah.
There's nobody else there right now. So
Oh,
Would
Okay.
you like to go
Oh.
to one where there's other people, or would you like to just do the exercise by yourself?
I don't think that would be a good idea.
Okay, fair enough.
Okay, let's see here. There's one about collaboration, community transformation.
Community engagement.
I'd like to go to inclusivity if you can put me there. I still don't have my breakout room.
Oh, well then Lucy could join you. Okay,
Okay.
the two, is it okay if the two of you could go to inclusivity together? Lucy?
Well, we like someone else also with us. Who's going to lead us?
There's nobody, well,
Is
there's
it doing
nobody
our
else,
own
nobody
thing?
else joined inclusivity. So if the two of you are interested, the two of you could work on it together.
Okay.
Is that okay, Lucy?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, great. See you later. Do you see the thing pop up where you can go? Great.
They went. They all are in.
And then Claire went to, oh, the Sustainable
Sustainable.
Solutions. Is Vina by herself still?
No, there's no one. No, Vina went to authentic community engagement.
Oh, she switched,
I think so.
or, yeah, she switched, I see.
Yeah. So at least there are two in each.
Two, at least two in each room.
Yeah. Yes. Get a good mix.
Oh,
It's good.
yeah.
Yeah. They are quiet.
Well,
I forget about that. The other twos are very chatty and asking but this one I forget they're quiet. Yeah.
I think they're okay self-managing themselves.
I think so. And if not, we can always jump in to see if they have any questions. Hopefully they're able to find the slides because I know you have to scroll down depending on
Oh, we
which.
can look over there and see how they're doing too.
Oh yeah.
But those first two questions will take a few minutes, I'm sure. But we'll start to see them typing when they're ready.
Mhm.
And then Claire told me in a direct message she's not joining a room. So I don't know, she's in there, but maybe she just felt like she could add to the dialogue or discussion.
Maybe.
So because
Yeah.
just two others, so
Mhm.
I'm curious to hear what they say
I
about
know.
these items when they do their deeper dive.
Yes, that transformation. It's popular. So I wonder what are their thoughts?
I know, it's interesting.
It's so interesting. Well, I mean, I don't know. Transformation comes up again, the word itself. What
Right.
transformation of leadership, but they were like, no, yes.
Exactly.
Let's
Maybe they're interested in exploring it further because it's newer.
I think it's more
Not newer, or
practical.
like we brought it up to them or something. Yeah.
Yeah. And it sounds more practical rather than like, tell us how you're doing it or this is a new thing. Yeah. And I think they see themselves in it too.
So I'm going to try to take a snip here of who's in which room so that we just have a record of it. And that might help. It might help with the when we do. So let's see who's leading the when we come back report back. It's me. Do you want to do it because we kind of got out of
yeah, I know. That's okay.
Stuff we're just like but it will help me with if you're leading the report back, then I can be sharing my screen and scrolling. It might be just a little easier.
Yeah.
So I'm going to copy this image, I think, and I'll put it in the chat.
Okay.
So you can have it. And then we're like, so you can see who's in the Act with Care group, who's in the, like from the SNP, you know what I mean?
Yes, I can also.
Because they'll, like when they come back, we won't have a record of who was where. Yeah, exactly. So if I put a SNP here, paste. How do I share my SNP? Save as. Yes. So if I go to the chat, where's the chat? Add a file from your computer. Desktop.
So it's recording as you guys edit.
We have an editor.
Oh, okay. Because I was like,
I know. I could pause it,
it doesn't go
but
away,
then,
does it?
then it's snipped into two things. So,
No. Be easy.
or maybe I can pause it and
On our side, yeah.
there was a glitch in the matrix yet again. It had everybody set as commenters.
Okay. Right.
Welcome back. Sorry for the
Thank you, thank
commenter
you.
glitch. Many of you took notes as commenters. Some sent us your notes and we popped them in for you. So technology, gotta love it.
Continuous learning.
Every day.
Yay.
Okay.
Okay, so
We're all back.
I think everybody's back.
Mhm.
Where do you want to start?
Yeah, you can start there.
Okay.
Thank you. So yeah, so now that you had a chance in your small group to kind of further explore and kind of chat about each principle, we're gonna ask you to report back. We can start with action with care. So the reporter or the note taker can just share any examples of how your organizations or each other kind of practice this principle, act with care.
Yes,
And that
that
was-
was my group.
Okay,
Um,
Erica. Okay.
hello. And we mostly talked about it like internally at the organization, with each other and staff. And we had 2 executive directors and then 2 direct service folks. And I'm a direct service person. So it was good to have a mix of both.
Mhm.
One of the new executive directors talked about coming into the position thoughtfully and thinking about these different principles, and that she had done that so that she can think about the new staff that she'll be supervising, and just being really intentional on how to build relationship and trust with those folks. Another executive director who's been there for a very long time talked about that's why the organization is so successful, because they've been doing these things, creating a healthy work environment so that you can provide healthy services to communities. Someone talked about how they did a personality assessment with all the staff. I can't remember which one, but to see what work environment they thrive in, to see or to create a healthy workplace so that you can seek understanding. Why do they do the thing that they're doing? Oh, it's because they're fitting into this personality type. Someone talked about not having a top-down organization. They treat everyone as crew rather than passengers. A lot of people talked about self-care. So they have it worked into the budget. Each staff, one organization has it where each staff has a small stipend where they can spend it however they want. Another staff, they have a wellness plan, and it was created by all the staff, and it's included in the budget. And they, it's a combination of doing what you want to do on your own, and then also picking group opportunities so that they can, get to know each other, things like that. And then relating wellness and self-care back to the mission of serving others. So putting that in your mission or putting that in your values so that you're thinking about that in your daily work, that it's not just kind of a side thing you're doing. Starting each meeting with a check-in of how have you been taking care of yourself. Someone talked about at staff meetings, there's a Google sheet always up with suggestions on how to do self-care or what people have been doing, like a new thing they've been doing. Individual check-ins, because sometimes these things maybe aren't talked about in a group, but that if you're doing that weekly check-in, people might bring it up if you ask about it, at a pre-scheduled time, instead of having to have them seek you out to tell you something maybe isn't being acted on with care.
Mhm.
And then I talked about at staff meetings, before every staff meeting we go around and take turns reading the guiding principles, our guiding principles, to ground everyone, to why we're here. And I would say a lot of our guiding principles relate to the acting with care.
Mhm.
And so as new staff, because I'm a newer staff, it showed what we value. It very, I think my second day I was at a staff meeting and we were reading these guiding principles. And so I immediately knew that this was really important to the organization. So those, I can send you those. I tried to send them to you, but it didn't let me put that much text in the.
Carmen?
that-
Yeah,
Mhm.
it's okay. Thank you. Yeah, just, do you have our email here and stuff?
I think so.
Please.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then was there anything about advice for others?
Yes. Someone talked about giving the principals some thought. Don't just think they're going to happen on their own. So not just thinking about like the tasks you need people to be doing, but how you want staff to treat each other, how you want to treat staff, and that there's no one size fits all for every organization on what acting with care would look like. And don't give up, be patient. Trust doesn't happen overnight. It takes a while. That quote, trust is earned in drops and lost in buckets, like, especially if you're going from a toxic environment to moving towards like a healthy environment, it takes a really long time to earn people's trust. Self-awareness, knowing how you're showing up, listening and really examining yourself if others are giving you feedback that you're not showing up in a healthy way. And then when thinking about how this can look at the workplace, asking for examples from every level of the organization, from direct service to administration to leadership. And then making sure that leadership is setting the example of what this looks like, and making this principle the norm of what the workplace will look like, and then addressing behaviors that aren't fitting within acting with care so that the workplace is healthy and continues to be healthy.
Yeah. Julie said that reviewing the guiding principles at each meeting is such a great idea. Yes, that's the first time I hear that. It sounds we should do too.
And then Raj says, when dealing with a focused strategy at CWA has been deliberate in domestic violence program prevention, building healthy relationships, interviewing at critical times, such as through 24/7 crisis line.
Yes, definitely. Those direct services. Awesome. Okay, let's hear from the second principle, the second group, inclusivity. So I believe Lucy and Raj were part of that group.
So we were trying to figure out, we couldn't write it in the box. So we made some comments on the side. Each one of us used comments on the side. Can you read those?
There's one from Lucy. We embody the inclusivity principle by being aware of the problems and needs the community is facing. Example during COVID, and then we acted quickly to raise money for cultural food pantry. That's the only comment we see from. Oh, there's some more Raj ones.
Yeah.
There you go.
Here we go. Show more here.
So what advice would you give to others who want to go deeper with this principle? So,
Is there anything more you'd like to say about ways to embody it, other than what Lucy has here about the example for the financial?
Well, for example, we've done a lot of work trying to embody the principles of inclusivity by taking leadership into consideration, taking into community organizations that have formed their own little organizations within the community. So keeping those people with us, and also our other stakeholders, our community. Let's say we are from API community, so keeping the other community collaborative work together. So we learn from each other and develop that better relationship with each other, and gaining from those who have more funds to develop relationship with them, so they can also help us with those who don't have much funds. So that was the main area of this program, is that embodying the principle of inclusiveness, in which we had faced during the Asian hate times. We kind of clung to each other, trying to figure out what else one is doing, so we can repeat the same thing in different silos of our communities. So those were the work we were looking at, inclusivity.
Mhm. Very important.
Thank
Yes.
you. Thank you. And then for the advice, we have some.
Yeah, advice I have plenty. Advice to hear your community, to be compassionate about them, to listen to your partners, what they have to offer, learning, because learning never stops. And just work hard. There's no other anything that can take place of working hard.
Mhm.
So that's all I'm saying.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah. Good, good. Thank you, Raj. And then we can go on to the next group, which was authentic community collaboration. So what examples do you have for us?
Yeah, I have the notes from that in a separate document,
Okay.
so I can share. Uh, we well, just some sort of themes that showed up from several of the different examples and comments that were shared in our group are that this work can't be rushed, and the importance of connecting and listening to community in ways that aren't strictly program driven in order to build trust and build rapport. Yvette talked about when Casa Esperanza first started doing men's and boys programming. They weren't getting the engagement they wanted, and so they spent time days just showing up with snacks at soccer games where boys and in a lot of cases their fathers also were there, and not trying to push an agenda at first, and just being there, sharing snacks, and that eventually kind of led to an atmosphere where they could start to talk about issues and invite people deeper into engagement. We also talked about the connective tissue between organizations is so important in making sure that community engagement is really permeating through all the different parts of a network of organizations. Talked about groups like legal services groups, or other groups that are a layer or two removed from the direct organizing and community engagement, needing to be able to have robust connections with grassroots groups that they're working with, so that that community engagement and the wisdom and the perspective that's coming from the community can be infused into their work without reinventing the wheel every time and convening a whole additional committee or focus group or what have you from communities that are already have a lot of demands on their time. And so just having those lines of communication be strong, so that that community engagement goes further in different directions. And then also the importance of being willing to fail, to iterate, to ask the community when something doesn't land, what isn't working, what could we do differently next time. And also, I have to say, a really moving call to action to funders to embrace this mentality also. It's common in the tech sector. They talk about, fail early, fail fearlessly. That's the path to success. And I think sometimes the power dynamics in, funder relationships lead us to want to just put the most positive spin we can on things. And if we can move past that together and be more, more trusting and more authentic and acknowledge when something hasn't worked, and that doesn't mean that there's no value there to continue investing in, then I think that moves us in a really positive direction. And then I'm going to share word for word, as close as I can, the advice from Yvette, which just blew us all away. She talked about patience. Don't pretend to be something you're not. The community will see through that. Listen to learn rather than listening just to respond. Provide food, very, very important. And don't be discouraged again if something doesn't work the first time through, and recognize that a high number of responses doesn't necessarily lead to success and lead to change. Sometimes going deep instead of going wide with having the right people in the room can be a really great start. And also letting the community define success. The advice out of our group.
That is great. Amazing. Thank you so much. How about our next group? Sustainable solutions. What are your examples?
So that's going to be either Dan or Imam. I took notes because we got frustrated figuring out how to do it in there. So I'll let them go ahead and chat.
I can go ahead. So for the define the problem, we discussed ongoing communication through social media to be able to figure out what are the issues that our community faces. It's been the most effective way to do so during the pandemic. And this helps us to figure out what are the top priorities that we're going to be focusing on for this year, including any kind of legislative proposals that we'll be working on, different school policies, some political and publicized issues that are a focus, including like hate crimes and things that will make our communities vulnerable. For designing the approach, we discussed how we can build in sustainability within our programs and our goals, and in this way our organizations are able to focus on like internal operations and recognizing, sorry about all the background noise, but being able to recognize that the success of our operations determines the success of the programs that we host. Hold on, I need to go on mute for a minute.
Okay.
And Dan, do you want to get in there with anything?
Okay, there we go. Turn the mic on. I don't know. I've only been doing this for like 3 years now. Okay, I don't quite know where Mama dropped off, but there's so many levels to the work that we do, and kind of just looking at success, at Outfront, just trying to reduce stigma when it comes to LGBT people, whether we're talking about pronouns or misgendering, or just simple things like wanting to go to a restroom that matches their gender identity and being able to do that without harassment or fear. Nonprofits working together, there can be larger turnout. We don't live in silos, and all too often we start acting like we do. It's really important to remember that, we're not in this alone. We don't have to do this work by ourselves, that there are other organizations that do this work, or even if they don't do our specific type of work, that they're doing work that is similar and runs parallel to it, and we could turn to them. And also, we're not always the best person when people reach out to us. They may reach out to us like, I have this question or I have this need. And as much as we may want to help them out, we're not always the best messenger. We're not always the best source or resource. There are needs that we have, you know, for out front, we don't have a legal department. So we depend on legal departments or legal advice or aid from other organizations. There's not a need to compete when we can work together, when we can partner, whether it's reaching out and asking for help or offering our resources to others. There's not a need to compete. And I know that that's kind of a struggle, you know, when there's only so much grant money out there and there's so many hands reaching for the pot. Competition just kind of pits us against each other. And, you know, that just works with a capitalistic society. And, well, you know, that's not always the best. Leading and joining coalitions to work on shared impact. Coalition work is far more impactful. For example, if you look at the work that Unrestrict Minnesota has done, you know, it wasn't one organization that did that. That was so many organizations joining together to accomplish some pretty great things and fight off some intense attacks on bodily autonomy. More foundations funders recognize the need for sustainability, core operating support, and unrestricted resources. You know, nonprofits in the attempt to stay, you know, funded will start chasing grants for the sake of chasing grants, and it turns into mission creep, it turns into struggles. Or they're recreating the wheel, you know, on like this grant, I'm going to do this. And it's like, well, it's great that you're going to do this, but there are organizations that have already been doing this and doing a remarkable job. They need sustaining money. They need the ability to continue that work. Otherwise, that program or that project or that person who is doing the work is no longer able to be paid for. And then that work will die in that organization while somebody else is recreating the wheel and losing ground because the work has already been done. Increasing and maintaining staff, so important. You know, we can only do so much and we get spread so thin and we're not actually helping as many people as we think we are when we're only doing a percentage of the work. So increasing staff, meeting current needs and growing is so important. See, I think those covered things. I don't know, what did I miss here?
Okay.
No, it's very thorough. Thank you.
Okay.
Yes. So the next group is the last group, actually.
The biggest group, I believe.
Yes, the popular one. The commitment to transformation.
And it looks like most of your comments are in, oh, there were comments once upon a time somewhere from this group. But
yeah, I can share for this group. This is Kara, and thank you, Sarah, for taking such thorough notes. So we had a pretty wide-ranging conversation. I think Sarah captured a lot of detail, and I'm going to try and synthesize. I just sort of bucketed things by like some factors we talked about, some dynamics, and then like takeaways and approaches. So I think some of the factors that folks raised were just like recognizing the challenges of transitions, whether it's about institutional memory or the need for succession planning, or what's lost and the harm that can be caused through some of those transitions. I think we talked about just broadly like structures and processes within organizations, whether it's sort of like moving from informal practices into a need to be more formal and go through that process, or whether it's about unionization efforts, like recognizing servicing pay inequities and addressing those, just building more processes and protocols like orientations, as well as just like recognizing the relationship of the board of directors to holding the ED accountable. Also like boards can be really helpful in that way and can also sometimes hold back from transformation or be the hard part of transformation. So the dynamics between boards and leadership and staff. We talked about just sort of the factor of community engagement and what it looks like to really be community driven, and the kind of strain on capacity that that can create. And then finally, just like in these moments of change and upheaval, navigating what is like kind of waiting for the dust to settle or recognizing that things might smooth out, and what is just recognizing this is the new normal and part of the messiness of the process. In terms of like dynamics that surfaced, we talked about just, again, capacity and burnout and how we sort of build capacity and what that looks like in terms of our organizations and our programs, especially when the need is so high. I think we talked about just like the need for accountability at all levels, especially when in our work, we talk a lot about power and organizing, and folks are, organizing, but sometimes flexing leadership can look like swatting down that organizing or those ideas. And then I think we talked about the just messiness and reality that we have to do these transformational processes and redesign processes while we're doing the work, that we can't just sort of take a pause, redesign or think through transformation and then come back to the work, but that it has to happen at the same time. And the tension that lives there, and sort of sometimes the internal work and the external work get pitted against each other, and just kind of recognizing that they have to happen simultaneously. So then in terms of just like some takeaways that folks named, I think we talked a bit about like how to not be defensive and really like own what comes up and keep moving, and try to sort of build towards a culture that we all own the organization. Again, knowing that transformation is messy, that we have to do it all at the same time, and that's sort of part of it. I think creating systems and processes separate from individuals, so that it's not just reliant on individuals to advocate for themselves, but that the system is actually set up to do it for them. And then moving at the right pace for the group. So kind of navigating what that means and what that looks like. And group, we talked about a lot. So if I missed anything, please let us know.
That was great. Thank you, Kara. That was nice. So I'm just looking at the time. I don't have like 3 minutes left. So are there any insights that came up for you as you were listening to the rest of the team about any of these, about the organizational equity practices and overall?
I'm glad this was recorded because I plan to share this with my design team. Because it was really, really good. Good job.
Thank you. I'm glad.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks very much.
Yes. So we have, in terms of next step and why we introduced this new kind of concept idea, is that we're trying to pilot this questionnaire to see if we can measure this across all the foundation grantees. So you're looking at it, we're going to have an opportunity to you guys are going to have an opportunity to provide us feedback in terms of this and what can we do after having this small groups conversation. So with that being said, we have a survey, a feedback survey that asks you a little bit more about how would you like to participate in terms of next steps about the organizational equity practices, and just feedback about the overall session and workshop today. So we're going to put the survey in the chat. So it would just take you 3 minutes if you can complete it now.
We will also be sharing the link and the materials with you within the next week. And so you can have an opportunity also to look at, there's the materials from today, and then there's another framework document as well. So, but if you have a few moments and you can take the survey now, great. We love to collect data, that's our jam. But of course, if you just need to deal with it at some other time, understood.
Yeah, we will send all of this as a follow-up email and all of that stuff.
Oh yeah, we have a quote we would like to leave you with.
Yes.
If I can get my thing to work. Oop.
All that you touch, you change. All that you change changes you. And the only lasting truth is change. So with that, again, if you have a few minutes, please fill out the survey. Otherwise, it was good seeing you all. Thank you for being here today.